Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I am Khushi, a medico, and today I'm going to teach you the general physiology topics. From that also, those who are important topics for university examination, and each day I'll be posting one video as I'm getting time. I will post it, and yeah, it is important topic for university examination. Let's begin with it. So the topic I'm going to cover in this video is homeostasis. We all know what is homeostasis. So what are the topics you need to write in your university exams in homeostasis? That is definition, its factors involved to maintain, the types of feedback mechanisms, and last the adaptive control system. The feedback mechanism has two types of feedback mechanism, the positive and the negative. So let's begin. First we have the definition. So what is the definition of homeostasis? The mechanism by which constancy of internal environment is maintained. What it is? Mechanism by which constancy of internal environment is maintained, or you can say maintenance of constant internal environment by the mechanism is known as homeostasis. Next, factors that are involved in maintaining the homeostasis. So we have what we have. So transport of ECF. ECF is extracellular fluid. Okay, so transport of ECF. Then we have maintenance of pH of ECF. That is our acid-base balance, right? So what we have seen first, transport of ECF, and the second is the maintenance of pH of ECF. Now we have regulation of temperature. Temperature regulation also plays an important role in the internal environment's maintenance. Maintenance of water and electrolyte balance. Okay, so maintenance of water and electrolyte balance is also important factor. Then we have supply of nutrients, oxygen, enzymes, and hormones. Okay, so supply of nutrients, oxygen, enzymes, and hormones. We have removal of metabolic and other waste products and reproduction. So removal of metabolic and other waste products and reproduction. So these are the factors that are involved in the maintenance of homeostasis. Now we go to the next slide. Types of feedback mechanisms. There are two types, positive, negative. We will study each feedback mechanism in detail. First, we will learn about the positive feedback mechanism. Here, I need to say that positive feedback mechanism, very important topic. Why? Because this has come for 3 marks. So please do pay attention for it. It comes. Well, actually it is asked as complete feedback mechanism, but as we have seen that the feedback mechanism in which we have to learn about those feedback mechanisms which are there in the homeostasis. So there are two types of feedback mechanisms that are involved in homeostasis, that is positive and negative feedback. The positive feedback is also known as what? Vicious cycle. What it is known as? Vicious cycle, which is usually harmful and in some cases even cause death. Now we go to the example of this feedback mechanism. When a person suddenly bleeds 2 liters of blood, the vicious cycle or the positive feedback mechanism of weakening of heart starts, and that leads to death. Okay, so if a person is bleeding 2 liters of blood suddenly, the positive feedback mechanism starts, which leads to the weakening of heart and thus leads to death. Now we come to the next point, that is, if a mild degree of feedback is overcome, so what will happen? So if a mild degree of feedback, a mild degree of feedback can be overcome by the negative feedback mechanism. Thus, vicious cycle fails to develop. Okay, so what happens? A mild degree of feedback can be overcome by the negative feedback mechanism, and thus the positive feedback fails to develop. Okay, now we come to the next point, that is, let's assume if a person is suddenly bleeding 1 liter of blood instead of 2 liters. So now what happens? The amount of blood bleeding is decreased to half. So what happens? The negative feedback of controlling the blood pressure may overcome the positive feedback. Okay, so the negative feedback who is controlling the blood pressure can overcome the positive feedback, and thus the blood pressure will return to normal, right? And so the bleeding will decrease. Sometimes positive feedback is also useful. For example, clot formation, childbirth, generation of nerve impulses. So these are the 3 examples which we will learn in detail in the next slide. First we will learn about childbirth. Now, as we all know, what is childbirth? So it is delivery of fetus. So what happens during the delivery? When the fetus is ejected, not ejected, when the placenta is breaking from the decidua, there will be a feto-placenta reflex that will go to the pituitary and give it positive feedback, and due to which the oxytocin will increase, and thus the stretching of the cervix by the head of the baby occur, and thus there is an increased uterine contraction due to oxytocin increase, and therefore childbirth takes place. Right? Now the next is the clot formation. So in clot formation, what will happen first? There will be thrombin formation. Thrombin formation because excessive blood is going out. So bleeding occurs, due to which thrombin will form. There will be thrombosis occurring, and due to thrombosis there will be a positive feedback. There will be a positive feedback, and due to which there will be a rupturing of vessels. Right? Rupturing of vessels. Accelerated rupturing of vessels. Okay? And thus the bleeding will stop. Now we come to the next and the last example of this, that is the generation of nerve impulse. So how are nerve impulse generated? First of all, the positive feedback due to excessive leakage of sodium ions from channels. What will happen? Stimulation of membrane of nerve fiber. So the membrane of nerve fiber is stimulated by the excessive leakage of sodium ions from the channels. Feedback positive. Positive feedback, sorry. And therefore, now when the membrane is stimulated, the nerve impulse is generated. Okay, now we go to the next. Negative feedback mechanism. So most control systems of the body act by negative feedback. So in general, if activity of particular system is increased or is decreased, the control system initiates the negative feedback, which consists of a series of changes that returns the activity towards normal. Okay, so if a particular system is having an increase in its activity or a decrease in its activity, the control system will initiate the negative feedback mechanism, which consists of a series of steps or reactions or changes that will return the activity towards the normal. For example, if we take when blood pressure increases or decreases, it will initiate a series of reactions that tries to bring blood pressure to normal. Or you can say when thyroxine secretion is more, the inhibition of the thyroid stimulating hormone will occur. This is a negative feedback mechanism. And the thyroid stimulating hormone is secreted by the pituitary. So now there is no TSH and there will be no thyroxine formation as there is no stimulation to the thyroid gland. So thyroxine is not secreted. Okay, I'll explain it here again. Blood pressure increase or decrease. Well, the increase spelling you can see it's wrong. Please do correct it in your books if you're writing notes. So now we have the blood pressure increased or decreased, you can say. So what will happen? There will be a negative feedback to overcome this loss or the increase or the decrease, whatever it is. Okay, so what will happen? Due to negative feedback, again it will turn to normal. If thyroxine is increased, then what will happen? There will be again negative feedback, and due to which there will be inhibition of TSH. Okay, so TSH is inhibited, which is secreted from pituitary, and thus there will be no stimulation to the thyroid gland and no secretion of thyroxine. Next, last topic of the day, that is the adaptive control mechanism, which refers to delayed type of negative feedback. So it is seen in nervous system. Now we take as an example for this when some moments of the body, oh sorry, give me a minute. Okay, so it's a delayed type of negative feedback. Okay, now for the example, when some moments of body, what happens, occur very rapidly. What here happens is rapidly. Okay, it's not slow moments, it's rapid moments, like you can say exercise and all. So there is not enough time for nerve signals to travel from periphery to brain. Okay, so there is no time for the nerve signals to travel from the periphery to the brain and then again take back to the periphery to control the movements, right? So there is no time for the nerve signal to go from periphery to the brain and from brain to the periphery again to control the movements. So what happens under this circumstances? Brain uses a principle called feed forward control. Feed forward control to cause the required muscle contraction, which retrospectively is conveyed to the brain by the sensory nerve signals from the moving part. If the movement performed is found incorrect, then the brain corrects the feed forward signals that is sent to the muscle the next time the movement is required. Such a correction made by successive retrospective feedback mechanism is called adaptive control. So what happens when it is a very rapid movement? You have no time for the nerve signals to go from the periphery to the brain and then from brain to the periphery to control the movement, right? So what happens here is brain is using a principle called feed forward control. In this, there will be the muscle contraction will occur, but it will be retrospectively. That is, brain um, has some different, it is what happens here is the required muscle contraction, which to cause the required muscle contraction, which retrospectively is conveyed to the brain by the sensory nerve signals from the moving part. Okay, now this will cause the movement. Okay, so what will happen is if the movement performed is found incorrect, then the brain corrects the feed forward signals that is sent to the muscle the next time the movement is required. So in hurry, the brain gives a random signal to the muscle to contract for the moment for the first time. Now, if the second time when the same movement is required and if the first time it was given incorrect, the brain will give the correct signal for the next time. The same movement will be occurring. Okay, so it will be corrected. So it will be done correctly. So this type of importance here in the brain or this correction made by successive retrospective feedback mechanism is called adaptive control. Okay, so this is all about today. Okay, this is all about today. And now, if you have not subscribed till right now, please go and subscribe to the channel because I'll be giving all the importance for the university examination and also along this PDF in the description below. So please do subscribe the channel and share it with your friends who are needing this kind of help. Thank you so much.